The ocean is silent at first. No radar pings, no shells tearing across the sky. Only the slow heave of water under an endless horizon. But in this silence, a paradox takes shape. Two ships that never met in our history, yet were destined by design to embody the last, greatest expression of the battleship age. One born in the dying embers of the Pacific War. The other drawn on American drafting tables as the ultimate answer to Japan's naval titan. The Montana and the Yamato. The largest battleships ever built, or planned to be built. In our world, Montana never left the drawing board. The United States Navy, already turning toward carriers, canceled her construction before a single keel was laid. Yamato, by contrast, did sail. She was real, magnificent, and doomed. But what if these two giants had clashed, in steel and fire, in the middle of the Pacific? What if Montana had joined the fleet, and destiny had drawn her across the path of Yamato? Imagine the year is 1945. The war still rages, but in this alternate path, America has not canceled its Montana program. One ship, USS Montana, completed ahead of schedule, sails from Pearl Harbor to join the fight. Her hull gleams with new armor. 12 16-inch guns, more powerful than Iowa's, sit in 4 triple turrets. Heavier armor than any American battleship before her, thick enough to shrug off blows that would cripple lesser ships. Across the Pacific, Yamato prepares for her final sortie. Operation 10 Go, the desperate thrust toward Okinawa. In reality, she faced waves of American aircraft. But in this alternate sea, the weather has turned. Heavy storms lash the skies, grounding planes and leaving only the battleships to decide the outcome. The great duel of steel that never was is now inevitable. Picture the moment, the Montana, escorted by destroyers and cruisers, cutting through stormy waters. Her radar sweeps the horizon with unseen eyes, able to track targets through fog and darkness. On the other side, Yamato emerges from the mist like a floating fortress. Displacing 70,000 tons at full load, her massive 18-inch guns, the largest ever mounted on a warship, lie ready. Crews prepare shell and powder charges as if summoning thunder itself. The ocean narrows, the storm breaks, and the battle begins. The first act is not thunder but silence. Each side watches, calculates. Yamato's commander knows that if his ship cannot close the distance quickly, Montana's radar-guided fire will decide the fight. But pride and the weight of empire demand an attack. He orders full speed. The giant prow cuts through the swells, water curling away like molten steel. Inside Montana's plotting room, officers hunch over radar displays. Blips flicker, marking the range. The captain waits, his crew tense, until the enemy comes within striking distance. Then, with the calm of inevitability, he gives the order. Fire. Montana's forward turrets erupt. The recoil shudders through the hull. 12 16-inch shells arc high, invisible in the gloom until they fall like meteors. Seconds stretch like hours. Then water erupts near Yamato, columns leaping skyward. One shell smashes against her upper deck, tearing away metal but failing to pierce deep. Another crashes into the armored belt, the steel groaning under the impact. Yamato shudders, but does not fall. Her reply comes moments later. The 18-inch guns of Yamato roar, a sound so deep it shakes the bones of every man aboard. Each shell weighs more than 3,000 pounds, each one designed to rip open battleships like toys. They streak across the sky and land near Montana, the ocean rising in white walls of water. One shell finds its mark, glancing off the armor belt with a screech like tearing mountains. The ship holds. The duel has begun in earnest. Now the storm clears and the horizon opens. Each ship looms in full view. Gunners reload, officers bark orders, damage crews rush to patch wounds. It is not a battle of fleets or aircraft. It is two giants locked in a contest of endurance, pride, and fate. The question hangs over the waves. Which titan will endure, and which will sink into the abyss? As the battle rages, history itself trembles. This is no longer the story of aircraft ending the age of battleships. This is the story of what would happen if the age of steel ended with one final duel. And with the second salvo, the ocean itself seems to hold its breath. The second salvo carries more weight than the first. Both captains know it. The opening shots are always uncertain, a feel across the horizon, a test of nerves and instruments. But now the guns are locked in, the range is measured, and the time for testing has ended. Montana fires first. Her 12 guns thunder in unison, flames blooming from her turrets, shockwaves rolling across her decks. The shells arc like dark stars against the clearing sky. This time, accuracy improves. One shell slams into Yamato's superstructure, blasting apart an anti-aircraft battery and showering her deck with shrapnel. Another tears through an upper deck corridor, killing men where they stood. The Japanese ship staggers under the blows, but her armored citadel, the very heart of her being, holds firm. Yamato responds in kind. Her great 18-inch rifles boom, the sound rolling across the Pacific like the growl of gods. The shells come down with terrifying force, so heavy that even Montana's massive armor feels their weight. One shell crashes into her deck, gouging out steel and throwing fragments across the bridge. Men are hurled to the floor, alarms scream, yet the vital systems remain intact. It is no longer a contest of who can strike. It is a test of who can endure. The sea becomes a battlefield of geysers. Every few minutes, walls of water explode around each ship as shells find near misses. The spray blinds lookouts. The concussions rattle the bones of sailors. Men below decks labor in furnace heat, passing shells in charges, muscles burning with every lift. Above, gunners steady their aim, eyes fixed on rangefinders, hands clenched as they wait for the next order to fire. And yet, it is not only steel and powder that decide the duel. It is the invisible hand of technology. Montana's radar, her unseen advantage, tracks Yamato with steady precision. Every salvo refines the firing solution. Every miss draws the crosshairs closer to the enemy's heart. Yamato, by contrast, relies on optics, the human eye straining through haze and smoke. Her gunners are superb, her equipment excellent, but in the storm-tossed Pacific, human senses falter. Still, Yamato is no easy prey. Her captain knows that Montana's range advantage must be blunted. He orders a turn, swinging his great ship broadside, daring to close the distance. Yamato's full battery faces Montana now, 9 colossal rifles pointed directly at the American Titan. At closer range, her shells will not merely scar, but penetrate. Montana's commander recognizes the move. He faces a choice: maintain distance and rely on technology, or risk maneuvering closer, where her armor may be tested to its limit. He chooses caution, ordering evasive turns, keeping his ship angled to deflect incoming fire. The sea churns with white froth as the two Titans circle, each seeking the perfect shot. The tension on board both vessels is unbearable. On Montana, young sailors grip their helmets, the deck vibrating with every blast. They know their ship is new, untested in combat, and they wonder if her armor will hold. On Yamato, veterans of years at sea tighten their belts, smoke clinging to their uniforms. They know this may be their last battle, their last chance to strike a blow for a fading empire. The next salvo decides the rhythm of the fight. Montana lands a direct hit on Yamato's forward turret. The massive armor holds, but the concussion jams the mechanism. One of the great guns falls silent. For the first time, Yamato bleeds more than metal. She bleeds potential, her ability to strike diminished. Her crew rushes to repair, sweat and blood mingling as they struggle against jammed gears. But Yamato is not finished. Her next salvo lands true, one shell smashing deep into Montana's secondary battery. Flames erupt along the side, ammunition cooks off, and black smoke billows upward. Fire crews rush with hoses, water and foam spraying as they fight to keep the blaze from spreading. The ship lurches but does not falter. The battle has reached a grim balance, each ship wounded, neither willing to yield. The ocean around them is scarred with craters, the air filled with smoke and the stench of cordite. Above, gulls scatter, their cries drowned by the roar of guns. And yet, as brutal as the clash appears, there is something almost ritual about it. Two nations, two philosophies, embodied in steel, exchanging not just shells but ideals. Yamato, the last desperate hope of an empire clinging to honor in the face of ruin. Montana, the cold industrial strength of a nation that has already turned its gaze to the sky, to carriers and bombers. For the men on board, however, there is no philosophy, only survival. They brace for every impact, cheer at every hit, curse at every miss. They are trapped in a world reduced to fire and steel, where the ocean itself seems to vanish beneath the fury of giants. Hour by hour, the duel grinds on. Damage accumulates. Montana lists slightly, her hull scarred, but her engines strong. Yamato's decks run red, her forward guns struggling, but her heart still beats. Neither side yet dares to imagine surrender. And in the fading light of day, as the horizon burns with sunset, both ships prepare for what may be their final exchange. The storm has passed. The ocean is calm. But within that calm lies the silence before the storm's return. For in this duel, only one giant can stand. The other must sink. Night falls slowly in the Pacific. The horizon bleeds from crimson to black, until only the faint glow of burning fires clings to the sea. Both Montana and Yamato continue their deadly dance, but the setting sun changes the rhythm of the battle. Darkness is a weapon, and both sides know it. On Montana, the crew works feverishly to repair damage before the night grows too deep. Fire crews smother the last flames. Damage control teams patch holes, pump water from compartments, reinforce bulkheads with steel braces. Men collapse onto the deck for brief moments of rest, their faces streaked with sweat and soot. Yet none dare sleep, for they know Yamato is still out there, waiting. Below decks, the great engines rumble steady as a heartbeat. The ship may be wounded, but she is not slowing. Officers move through the passageways, speaking in low voices, their eyes hollow but determined. They know the night favors their radar, their electronic eyes piercing the darkness where human vision falters. Montana's captain leans over the plotting table, calm and cold, his voice clipped as he orders his men to maintain course, to prepare for another exchange. On Yamato, the atmosphere is different. Her crew is exhausted, their ship battered, yet their spirit remains fierce. Lanterns flicker along darkened corridors as men carry shells to the magazines. Medics move among the wounded, bandaging torn flesh, whispering prayers. In the great turret that still functions, the gunners sit in silence, hands on steel, waiting for the command. The Japanese captain knows radar gives Montana an edge, but he also knows that Yamato's guns, if they can close the distance under cover of night, could decide everything with a single devastating hit. The two ships vanish into the dark Pacific. Only their escorts keep watch, destroyers and cruisers sweeping the waters, wary of submarines or sudden ambush. But tonight, the ocean is eerily empty. The duel belongs to the giants alone. Shortly after midnight, Montana strikes first. Her radar operators track Yamato's silhouette at 20 miles, a faint ghost in the dark. Orders ripple through the ship, and suddenly her forward turrets ignite the night sky. 12 shells arc across the void, their fire briefly turning night into day. Moments later, fountains of water erupt around Yamato and one shell crashes onto her deck, tearing open steel and scattering men like leaves in a storm. Yamato answers. Blind without radar, she fires by instinct and calculation, her guns belching fire into the dark. The shells streak through the night, slamming into the ocean close enough that Montana rocks on the waves. One finds its mark, tearing into her upper decks, blasting apart radar equipment in a fiery explosion. Sparks rain down, smoke fills the bridge, and for a moment, Montana's electronic advantage flickers. The battle evens. Now the duel becomes one of nerves. Montana's crew fights to restore her radar, patching wires and recalibrating instruments, while Yamato seizes the moment to close distance. Her great engines drive her forward, churning black water into white foam. The Japanese captain's plan is simple. Bring Yamato within 12 miles, where her guns can pierce even Montana's armor. The chase through the night begins. Montana turns to keep distance, using her superior fire control systems to fire on the move. Shells rain down around Yamato, each one closer than the last. Her armor groans and shudders, yet still she presses forward, the thunder of her engines echoing in the dark. Inside Yamato, the men know they are pushing toward death. The corridors stink of oil and blood. The wounded moan in the infirmary. Yet no one falters. They believe their sacrifice may carve a scar into history, that Yamato's name will be remembered as the ship that stood against America's mightiest titan. On Montana, sailors cling to hope that their technology, their gunnery, their training will carry them through. Yet doubt gnaws at them. If Yamato closes, if one of those 18-inch shells plunges through their deck into the magazines, all of Montana's promise will end in fire and water. By 3 a.m, the distance has narrowed to 15 miles. Yamato fires again, her shells screaming through the night like falling mountains. One strikes Montana's aft turret, denting its armor, jamming gears, silencing 3 of her 12 great guns. The shock reverberates through the crew. Their firepower has been cut and Yamato is drawing closer. The captain of Montana faces a terrible choice: stay on course and risk Yamato closing the gap further, or turn broadside and unleash all remaining guns in a gamble to cripple her opponent. He chooses the latter. Montana swings wide, exposing her armored flank, and all 9 operational guns thunder. The shells cross the void in seconds. 3 strike Yamato. One tears into her superstructure, shredding communications. Another smashes through an upper deck, igniting fires. The third plunges deep into her hull, breaching compartments and flooding them instantly. The great Japanese battleship slows, listing slightly as water pours in. But Yamato is not yet finished. Her guns roar one last time in the darkness. One shell slams into Montana's forward deck, blasting open steel, collapsing bulkheads, and killing dozens in a single instant. Another strikes her side, tearing away plating, opening her to the sea. The duel has reached its breaking point. Both ships burn, both ships bleed, both ships list in the dark, yet neither captain yields. The night belongs to them, and neither will surrender it. The horizon begins to glow with the first light of dawn. Smoke drifts across the ocean. Flames lick the sky. And as the morning sun rises, the world prepares to see which titan will stand when the other finally falls. Dawn breaks with a cruel beauty. The Pacific glitters in gold, but beneath the light lies a scene of devastation. 2 titans float scarred and bleeding, their hulls blackened, their decks torn open. Montana and Yamato, each a monument to human ambition, face each other in the pale morning glow, preparing for their final act. On Montana, the crew stares out at the rising sun with hollow eyes. They have fought through fire, through darkness, through the relentless pounding of Yamato's great guns. Their ship still moves, still fights, but she is no longer whole. Smoke trails from her aft turret, still jammed. Fires burn stubbornly below decks, yet her engines live. Her heart still beats. On Yamato, the cost is greater still. She lists heavily to port, her hull torn wide by the last American salvo, pumps strained to keep her afloat, but the water keeps rising. Her bridge is shattered, her communications severed. Yet her remaining guns, massive and unyielding, are still loaded. Her captain knows the end approaches, but he will not die quietly. He orders one last attack, one last thunderclap of defiance. The silence of dawn shatters as Yamato fires. Her 18-inch rifles roar, belching flame and steel. 3 shells streak across the morning sky, their trails like burning meteors. One plunges into the sea beside Montana, drenching her decks in geysers. Another smashes into her bow, tearing away plating and throwing men overboard. The third strikes her forward deck, plunging deep into compartments, igniting a roaring inferno. Montana shudders, her hull groaning as if the sea itself were pulling her down, but she does not yield. Her captain, blood on his face from shattered glass, grips the railing and gives the order. All guns, fire! 9 great barrels thunder in reply. Shells arc high, catching the first rays of dawn as they fall toward Yamato. 2 slam into her midsection, detonating deep within her hull. A third smashes through her stern, crippling her steering. The great Japanese battleship staggers, her engines falter. Fires erupt uncontrolled, the duel is over. For a moment Yamato drifts, her crew still at their stations, still manning their posts as water rushes in. They sing quietly, their voices carrying over the waves, a hymn of loyalty and sorrow. Their captain stands firm on the bridge, refusing to leave, his hand resting on the rail as the ship that carried him through storms and battles begins to die. Montana watches in silence. Her guns are silent now, her crew exhausted, their faces streaked with ash and salt. They know they have won, but victory feels hollow. For in Yamato's death, they see their own reflection, the end of an age, the fading of giants. Slowly, majestically, Yamato rolls. Her bow rises as water floods her stern. The ocean swallows her in a great roar of steam and thunder as her magazines detonate. A column of fire and smoke rises into the morning sky, a funeral pyre for the largest battleship ever built. Then she is gone, leaving only oil, wreckage, and silence. Montana, herself crippled, limps away. She has survived, but she is no longer the shining promise of American steel. She is scarred, wounded, haunted, and her crew, though alive, carry the memory of what they have seen, the fury, the destruction, the final clash of titans. The sea calms as if nothing had happened. Waves wash gently over drifting debris. Gulls circle above. The duel of giants has ended, and with it, the age of battleships. For even Montana, victorious, is a relic of a war already turning to carriers and aircraft. Her triumph is as fleeting as Yamato's defiance. History never gave us this battle. In truth, Montana was never built. Yamato was destroyed by aircraft, not another battleship. Yet in imagining their duel, we glimpse the sheer scale of human ambition, the pride of nations poured into steel, the terrible beauty of machines made for war. The clash of Montana and Yamato is not just the story of 2 ships. It is the story of humanity reaching the peak of one era, only to realize the future belongs elsewhere. The battleship, once the supreme symbol of power, was already passing into history, even as these giants prowled the seas. As the sun climbs higher, the Pacific swallows the echoes of gunfire. The Montana sails on, wounded but alive. The Yamato rests beneath the waves, her crew entombed in steel. 2 destinies intertwined in an alternate morning that never was. And so we are left with a question. If giants can fall, if the proudest weapons of nations can be reduced to wrecks on the ocean floor, what else in history is destined to fade? What else do we build, believing it eternal, only to watch it vanish in fire and silence? The Montana versus Yamato, a battle that never happened, but in our minds, it becomes a symbol of endings. The end of steel, the end of an age, the final duel of titans. Thank you for sailing with us through this alternate history. If you wish to journey deeper into the seas of what might have been, to explore more battles that never were, I invite you to stay with us. There are countless oceans of history yet to cross, and many more stories waiting beyond the horizon.